Hey guys, I just realized that all of my thumbnails when I'm gardening look exactly the same. Exactly the same, as if only they were more original. So here is my deep mulch system, and I wanted to give you a few pointers. If you use the pretty pink light fluffy stuff, it blows away. So what I use is the old moldy nasty stuff. And what you do is you put it in a layer about this deep. And again, the wetter, the moldier it is, the better, because then it really does smother things. If you want to do it really well, put cardboard underneath. So this is what it looks like. And I've left myself a path where it's just lightly strawed. Hey Shannon, how are you? So a little tiny bit of straw on the path. You don't want deep mulch on the path because then you can't get your wheelbarrow through it. Somebody else say something? No, we're good. Okay. So I have my automatic drip system, and I use old nasty hoses that are broken. Not all of these are just hoses that are floating right now. I don't have it fully set up. But what I use is old hoses. See if I can find a spot and show you. And this is what it looks like. I take one old hose and I cut a really big hole in it, and then I take another hose and I make a cap. Oh, you hear the geese? And so this is what it looks like. And you can see my worms in here too. I have lots and lots of worms. Can you see them? Right here? Maybe you can't see them, but that's how big the hole is. And that means that the water drips out, and I don't have to buy drip hoses or anything. So I have compost here underneath the grapes, and I'm going to use that as the mulch. If you have something you want to grow really quickly, just use compost. I love to use rabbit manure as my mulch. But another thing I wanted to show you is you can actually cut your branches of your trees when you're pruning them, and cut them small and then lay them down. And eventually, as long as you make the pieces small enough, they'll break down over time. The other thing is, you see here, you see some of my weeds? Most of this is burdock, which we're gonna dig up and eat. Gobo burdock. It is eaten a lot in Asian cuisine, and you can see how beautiful it is. And ducks like to eat it, so it can take over. But if you have ducks, when it starts to be seedlings, they'll come through and they'll actually eat the young ones, and they'll leave the big ones alone. Hey Clarinda, hey Alex, hey Darlene, hey Ben. So, I wanted to show you some of the things that I do. And it's going to start raining again. We'll see if I can find a good spot. So, some of these are pretty nasty weeds, but when you have a deep mulch system, they just pull out. So I'll come and I'll pull them out, but then I just leave them on top. And the reason for that is they're not going to seed. They're not in their seeding stage, so they can't reproduce from me pulling them up. And so I leave them on the ground as additional mulch. So I'll go and I'll do weeding if I need to, or weed whacking. If weed whacking is all I can do, if for instance, is some of these like mallow plants that are hard to get up. If I can't get them up, I will use a weed whacker, and then I'll put the mulch down. But in a lot of my spots, let's see, by just planting extra heavy and not giving your perennials a huge amount of space, you can let them keep weeds out themselves. This is all comfrey. I've cut it and I've laid it down right around itself so that it fertilizes and mulches itself, and it'll come back quickly. And here's some more of my perennial spreading garlic. But that's how you do it. And the thicker you plant it, especially things like comfrey or burdock, the thicker you plant it, sorry, I got a hair in my mouth, the more you can use it as mulch. And you can use your willows. This is my living fence. You can cut little bits of the willows, and what you don't feed to your goats or your chickens, or not chickens, goats or rabbits, you use as mulch. There's quite a bit in here. And so I kind of watch for life cycle, life stage on my weeds to know when to apply mulch. You don't want to do it when they've gone to seed, because then they'll just sprout back up. I'm trying to think what else to show you. In this system with the deep mulch, You do need ducks. Otherwise you're gonna have slugs. And if you have anything planted in here, the slugs will eat it all. So we'll see if I can find the new arrivals. Again, we're in the middle of trying to get the backyard all fixed up and pretty. I don't know where they're hiding. I brought, oh, they're there. I don't know if I can turn the camera around. Let's see if I can show you. There they are, right there. I'm gonna do a little more weeding back here and then I'll put down the straw. But all of these come up so easy. You see that, even the roots? These are flowering plants and bees absolutely love them. But I have so many back there in the food forest that I don't really need them here. So I just lay them down as mulch. And you see how quickly I can clear space of them? That one didn't want to come up. Grass is my enemy. Grass and bindweed. Because these ones come up super easy. But this property has not had mulch on it for 3 years. It has not had mulch applied in that long. And you can see that you can still see a little bit of the mulch. So the reason it looks the way that it does now is just because it hasn't been weeded and it hasn't been mulched in that long. And so I'm having to kind of start over just a little bit. I mean, the soil, if you want to see how good the soil is, this is the soil. It's good soil. And that's why everything just pulls up easy. But if you let it go for 3 years and you don't apply new mulch every year, you do have to do a little bit bigger application. But everything is still pretty abundant. The strawberries are good. I need to take a little bit of grass out of them. And then there's just a lot of these. These are called hoary cress, and the bees love them. But your herbivores can't eat them. It'll burn their mouths. And again, we've got ducks now, just 2 of them, so it's not enough really for this much space. But it's a start. And this is what everything looks like. There's the raspberries. We've already got them weeded. All that's in there now is garlic. And we moved some of the other raspberries. And this is pretty much what a permaculture system should look like. You see this one doesn't have any weeds. And so I would want to put a little bit more straw on it so it doesn't get muddy. But that's pretty much what the rest of it's going to look like when I'm finished. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Most of the tree limbs that we're cutting down go to the goats to be eaten, and then we cut them up after the goats have harvested all the leaves and flowers off, and they're super satisfied. If we had rabbits right now, we would do the same thing with the rabbits, but we don't. And this is pretty much what it looks like. It's a little bit rough right now, just because it hasn't had quite enough TLC. This is a living fence and it needs repaired. And I wish I could show you the geese. I don't know if I can show you because they're being a little bit shy. They're really quiet for geese. But this is the raspberry blackberry patch. Everything in there that looks like grass is garlic. And I have quite a bit of garlic out here in the path. Let's see if I can show you the geese. They're in there, right there, but they're hiding in their doghouse. Hey Bitty Boo Brown, how are you? How is the weather? That is how the weather is. It looks probably pretty similar to yours. We're getting a lot of rain. How big is our property? 1.5 acres, and we do an awful lot with it. So there's the blackberries, the raspberries, the Siberian pea shrubs, and then the goats are all out there in their little shelters because they don't like to get wet. So hopefully that was helpful to everybody. Again, free mulch that's moldy, unless you have a pretty big mold allergy and you can't handle it. That's what I use. I don't use the pretty expensive stuff. I use free stuff when I can. And I make sure to make use of my own weeds. Rather than throwing them out and putting them in the compost, it's better just to lay them down where they are. Are you selling your homestead or renting it out? We don't know yet. I'm getting it ready as if I was selling it. But I would like to rent it instead of selling it, just because it's such a beautiful place and I have so much time into it. I'd like to hold on to it and have people enjoy it, but always know that it's here. I am such a prepper at heart. So It will look better after I've had some chickens on it. I'm going to bring 2 chickens in and let them fluff things up just a little bit, but that's not enough chickens for them to actually scratch it all up. It'll keep them busy, but it'll keep them from digging down to the soil, and then the ducks will be able to get in and eat all the slugs. So it's a pretty good system. It's a lot of straw. If we want to rent, how do we contact you? Contact me at dirtpatcheaven@gmail.com. We already have one viewer from the channel who wants to rent it from us, and right now we are kind of negotiating on the price if they want to rent, and John really still wants to sell, so he and I are kind of going back and forth a little bit because I want to rent, and we do have a viewer who wants to rent it from us, and they actually want to be in the 2nd week in June, so in 2 weeks, and that would actually work out really well for us, but John really wants to sell, so we're kind of having to go back and forth on it. Bitty B Brown, yeah, at 85 degrees. Yeah, we're having lots of rain, but it's coat weather. If you don't have access to straw, what else works? If you plant a lot of comfrey, that works really well. That's what all that green stuff is over there, is comfrey. Wood chips work. Hay works, as long as it's not grass hay. You don't want to use grass hay because it does have seeds in it, whereas alfalfa hay, it's like 100% nitrogen. It's like you're just putting uncomposted compost on it. It doesn't get seedy, it doesn't get weedy, it just feeds your soil. When you cut and drop the weeds, might they reseed, or with the roots would they restart? They won't if you do them at the right stage. You don't want to take something that's going to seed and cut it and leave it. Definitely don't want to do that. But when it's in the young stage before it has any seeds, you just pull it up and lay it on the top, or it kind of depends on what kind of weed it is. The hoary cress, it just dies, and it's super easy to pull up. With bindweed, you might not want to bury it. You want to leave it on the top and let it get scorched by the sun a little bit. So, grass meadow clippings, as long as they are not in the seeding stage, as long as they do not have seed heads on the top, any kind of carbon, anything like that works, as long as it's not going to seed. So, there we go. Hay, I've used wool before, but that is a little tricky to get your fork through once you're trying to move it. So this is how nasty and weedy it is. Or not weedy. Nasty and moldy it is. We use wood chips too. I guess I could show you guys the front. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me, but a lot of our fruit is actually up here at the front. And we do have a conventional lawn, but it's tiny. Everything else, and actually the goats graze up in the front too. So I can't say that it's not still farmy because we don't mow it, the goats do. But this is what it looks like. We have a duck house up front. There's our plastic that we were trying to put somewhere. Lots more goat grazing. And tires for tomatoes. That's pretty much what it looks like. We've simplified the watering quite a bit. I've taken down all the water lines to any trees that do not actually produce food. So I've definitely simplified that. Instead of having to water several times during the week, you only have to water once. So that's how it's going. Yes, and rabbits do dump a lot of alfalfa too. And we use a lot of rabbit manure when we have rabbits. All right, so there, I'm not sure what else to show you right now. We've had a lot of rain, and so it's going to look a lot different within less than a week. If we get some sunshine, everything is just going to explode. The willows look a little stark right now, and I kind of want to pull out some of the dead wood that's supposed to be part of it and kind of start over in some of these spots because I don't like how it looks. Hello, Sandra. Are rabbit droppings hot? Nope, they're not. And I use them straight on my garden, but I have very sterile soil anywhere but in, well, I even use it here where all my soil is super rich. I don't let it touch the plant, but I mulch with it around the plant. Where's your tiny house from the big house? Well, I don't really want to show you because we have been neglecting the tiny house while we've been trying to get the big house finished up. But let's see, can I see it? Tiny house right there. So we have some privacy from the renters. And there's the big house. and the tiny house. So one of the things we've asked the renters that are potentially going to rent from us if they would like to use the tiny house as an Airbnb to make income, to use towards whatever they want. They could use it to make back money from their rent, if that makes sense. They could make their rent money with the Airbnb. So we have asked them if they're interested in that, and they seem to be pretty interested. But I've also been tempted to put the house up on Craigslist as a rental and really let people know what we have, because we have the big greenhouse. We have hundreds of fruit trees and bushes. We have some nut trees. We have hazelnuts. We have the goats that come with the rental if people want them. We have the ducks and the geese. We have the tiny house for the Airbnb. And we have the automatic watering system. So if people wanted to do like a market garden or something, they would be free just to use whatever they wanted to. So I'm kind of tempted to put it up on Craigslist that way and see if we can get a little bit more rent money that way, just to help people in the area find us. But I don't know. Sorry, the light's not very good. Yeah, permaculture retreats. I would love to do something like that, but John misses us and he doesn't want us here anymore, and he thinks if we sell it that he can make us happy somewhere else, but I really struggle with that. I would love to be able to do classes and do Airbnb type things and have people stay in the off-grid cabin or stay in the house and do that. There's a lot of potential there, but John really, really, really doesn't like Idaho. And I really, really, really don't like ticks and bed bugs and snakes and tornadoes and flooding. So we're at an impasse. But he will be here on Monday, and so that will be nice to have him and get to see him for a few days. I'm excited about that, and so are the girls, and so is he. He'll get out of the flooding and come here to our not very sunny weather, but we have appreciated the rain. We were looking for a place to buy, Canadian Homesteader. We were looking for a place to buy in Tulsa, and what happened was it never came through. They never have been able to find the title on that house. We've got 4 months, almost, is it 4 months of effort into that house that we wanted in Tulsa, and it never went through. We were approved for the loan, and then they couldn't find the title. And so at that same time, when we found that out, our renters decided that they needed to buy a bigger house. They would have liked to have bought our house, but it just wasn't big enough for them. They're going to have 8 kids by, I think by August. They're going to have their 8th child, and our house was just too little for them, so they couldn't buy it. And they did have a house that they really wanted that's just up the road from us. And so they contacted us just as we were going through the headache of trying to get that house in Tulsa, and they said, we're needing to not re-sign the lease, we're getting another house. And so I was planning on coming back to set up water for them, but when they didn't have the option to re-up the lease, instead I came back to get the house ready either for new renters or to sell it. And so that's why we are here. And if things had worked out the way we wanted them to in Tulsa, then we would have already had the homestead in Tulsa by the time we knew about this, and we would have had to do the same thing anyway. I still would have had to come back here to get things ready for a new renter or to sell it. Yeah, and where we are right now, this is Idaho. So, trying to think what else I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be getting more mulch down, but I wanted to do a little bit more weeding before I did to make the most of it. And Kai's at a birthday party, and Paige is out at Granny's. So I don't really have anything else to do right now. I should probably just go weed. When there's nothing else to do, go weed. Don't know what else to talk about. The geese are here. Sandra said, what other states would you and John consider living in? Right now, John really is interested in Kansas City. And for me, all it really needs to be is I'm really sensitive to insect bites, very sensitive. And living here, we're cold an exceptional part of the year. It's nice because we don't have a real problem with bugs. If you went 10 miles that way, 10 miles that way, or 10 miles that way, there, well, maybe not 10 miles that way, but kind of over in that area, southeast, there you would have problems with ticks and mosquitoes and horseflies and really bad. But in our little pocket, we're very blessed to not have a lot of bugs. I also don't do very well with heat or a lot of bright sunshine. I am redhead and I get heat stroke very easily. So, and John loves hot weather. He loves to boat, he loves to play in water, he loves to be very, very warm. And so at this point, the easiest thing has just been that during the hot summer months, I come back to Idaho and I work. That has been the easiest fix. And that's why I think the renting works, is because then I'm here in the summer helping the renters, and then in the winter we go meet up with John. And it just works. He doesn't have to be here during the really cold winter months, and I don't have to be there in the really hot summer months. And I think that it's worked really well, but I do understand that he's lonely. He doesn't have any of his family with him when we're here in the summer, and I get that. And I can't seem to handle it in Oklahoma when the weather gets really hot and buggy. Biddy Boo Brown said, man, if John could work close to us, there's some nice places up for sale. Well, and that's the other thing, is we're trying to stay as debt-free as possible. And the houses that we've looked at that we feel good about, the mortgage, they are a little harder to film in, and we could afford a lot more than what we're looking at, but we don't want to. That's the hard thing. We're trying very hard to be very, very frugal about a mortgage, which is the other reason why it's hard to leave this one, is because the mortgage here is so teeny. Hey, Off-Grid Lifestyle, how are you? Yeah, Canadian Homesteader said, I burn just thinking about the sun. So do I. I love this kind of weather. I love to work in this kind of weather. 72 is my favorite working temperature. So, anyway, that's where our impasse is right now. He really hates cold weather, and I get really sick in hot weather. And it just makes it super, super tricky. And we just don't know what to do about it. So, there are no more questions. I'm going to probably go milk or weed or something else productive. So, thanks for popping in. Use your mulch, use your weeds. And I mean, even here, here's the thing, here's the amazing thing. Even here in my path, this is a path. It gets walked on. And yet this is what my dirt looks like. And so even with the compaction of people walking on it constantly, it's soft. There's no compaction there because so much of that is, here, I'll show it to you. I can always put my hand through my soil, and even though there's sometimes the untidiness of what the straw looks like, but what you're building is life. It's life for your trees, it's life for your garden. So